Helen Tarrant, and today I'm actually going to take you through a little bit of a reprise of what we talked about when we talked about residential versus commercial, but today it's focused on cash flow. And I'm going to do this as a three-part series. I'm going to talk about cash flow today, then I'm going to talk about growth, and then I'm going to talk about uplift. Now, if you go back and you see our videos from before, you're going to see that we did talk about resi versus commercial as well as the highest ranking trending videos, but that was 12 months ago, 18 months ago, and the world's different. And the whole point of being here, me with you talking, is about what's happening in this current market. So I still believe commercial property is still the best investment right now for cash flow in this market, despite the fact we've got higher interest rates than we did 12 months ago. And let me tell you why. Because when we look at what we're going to get between residential and commercial, the fundamental differences is a gross rent versus a net rent. So what is the difference, right? Gross rent versus net rent. What is gross rent? Gross rent is basically rent you collect on the beginning, the top level, and then you have to pay out all the expenses, and then you're left with a net figure, which then you pay the mortgage, right? That's how residential works. Residential works on the gross rent that you pay at the top level. It streams down, like you take out your council fees, your strata fees, your water, your insurance, your property management, your land tax, you take out all of that, and then what you have left is barely enough to pay the mortgage, and therefore you are negative, right? But when you look at what you have on the commercial side, it is a net rent. And I know that some of you out there maybe have a commercial property that your tenant's paying gross rent, but every commercial property is traded on the net rent. So it's always looking at the net figure. That is after all the outgoings go out. So that's after you have like the council rates, after the your strata, after your management, after insurance, after land tax and management fee, all that taken out, the net yield is what it's worked on, right? So if your tenant's paying $60,000 net rent, they're paying all of the outgoings on top of that. If your tenant is paying $60,000 gross rent, the net rent figure is really $40,000, right? And that's what it's traded on. It's on the net rent. So I want us to look at a scenario, and I want to share with you 3 different scenarios so that you can have a look and make your own decisions, because it's all about making informed decisions in this market. And you really shouldn't park things. You should just keep going, right? And that's the most important thing. So number one thing is, let's say we buy $1 million property. So let's put this on the board. $1 million is what we're looking at. We're buying a $1 million property, and let's just say that we're comparing firstly residential versus commercial, the first bit. And then what we're going to do is take one more step forward where we're going, okay, if we didn't want this type of commercial, we want something with higher yield because it's all about cash flow, then what it's going to look like if we go one step further and one step further with more and more cash flow coming in, right? So I want to share with you that journey. Right, so let's look at here. So we've got residential, right? We've got a commercial here. So let's do that first comparison, right? Residential versus commercial first comparison that we're doing, right? And I'm going to bring this in a bit closer so you get to see it. So residential versus commercial, right? Let's say $1 million, and let's look at this as a 6% yield, right? Let's just try to even out the scoreboard, like 6% yield. So 6% yield in commercial, it's $60,000 net rent. So I'm going to put 60K net here. And I know the rents are going up in residential. So right now, if you wanted to buy $1 million residential in Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane, it is probably not going to get you $60,000, but maybe getting you close, maybe get you 45 to 50, but let's just call it $60,000 so we can level the playing field, right? Let's call it 60K as well. But the difference is this is gross rent, what I call gross rent, right? So gross rent versus net rent. So gross rent means things need to come out of here. So we've got gross rent, which means that these things need to come out of here. So what comes out of here is actually, what you see here is actually all of the expenses need to come out. So what does that typically look like? Well, these expenses typically look like, well, we've got your strata fees, right? We've got strata, we've got council, we've got management, we've got insurance, we've got land tax, and we've got maintenance, right? So what typically this adds up to, when you look at something like this typically adds up to somewhere around 20K, right? It's about 20K. By the time you add out all of that, that's 20K. So what is your net figure? Well, your net figure actually gets reduced. It gets reduced to about 40K. That is your net figure. That is your net figure, right? And if you look at it and you're buying $1 million property and you have an $800,000 loan, so 80% LVR loan, it's $45,000 at 6% to pay that mortgage. So you're negative 5K right now. Right now, 5K is the best scenario for you to buy residential. But if you do commercial, $60,000 is net, right? That means that your tenant pays all the outgoings, right? But let's just go through this scenario, right? Let's say tenant pays. So Strata, the tenant pays. Council, the tenant pays. Let's say the management, you pay for it, right? Because you've got to pay for something, right? Let's say the management, you pay for it, right? So let's just put landlord, L for landlord, insurance, the tenant, land tax, even the tenant pays for it, right? And you know that if you're buying $1 million property right now, it's probably going to be a little bit more negative than $5,000, but tenant pays for that, and maintenance, the tenant pays for that. And this is just run-of-the-mill maintenance, because you can't take care of a property where your tenants have done the fit-out already. So you've got that. So let's just say that the management fee is $3K, right? So then you're getting so what you're getting is $57K net. So $57K net, and if your mortgage is $45,000, you're still clearing $13,000 in terms of your net, like in your pocket positive cash flow. So you're still getting more cash flow than you do in residential, in commercial right now, even at a 6% yield on an 80% LVR loan, right? On commercial. Not everyone will get an 80% LVR loan, but if you did, and you're comparing it with residential, that's where it's going to be, right? So that is your loan process. So you're going to get, the difference is here, is you're going to be minus 5K, you're going to be plus 13K. So that is your difference. That is your difference. But what if we look at it somewhere else? Like, what if we go, all right, that's not good enough. That's not enough for us. 13K, I'm putting in 200K, putting in 200,000, and look, I know there's stamp duty and costs, and we're going to just take that out for the moment. Let's say it's $13,000. $13,000 on 200K you've put in. What is that? That is probably roughly somewhere around 6 to 7% cash on cash return on your money. Cash on cash return on your money, right? And look, it's better than the bank, better than the bonds, because you still have capital growth, right? Because if you don't buy the property right now, what's going to happen with inflation at 7% is that next year, your $1 million property is $1,070,000. And that means that you've actually lost 70K. So you've got to ask yourself, do you want to pick up the 70K plus the $13,000 in cash flow or not? So $13,000 is the cash flow. But you say, this is not enough. I want more. I got into commercial property because I want more. Well, I'm going to share with you some scenarios of how you get more. Right? One option is obviously what we're talking here is metro. So I'm just going to put a little tag here so you know that it is metro. All right, so we got metro. So what is metro? That is Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide, ACT, all of the capital areas is metro. Let's say you want more though. So we want more, so then we go, okay, let's go more. Let's go regional. Right, so let's go more. Let's go regional. Right, so we go regional. What do we have here? So we have 7%. What does 7% mean? It's 70K. Your mortgage is 45K. Here, all of a sudden, you are getting a 25K, right? You're getting 25K, right? That is what you're getting in terms of cash flow. So that's your cash flow on 7%. But let's just say that, no, that's not even enough. You know, I want more than that. I want more than that. Okay, well, where do I go? All right, why don't I go, into smaller regional towns? So let's call them smaller regional towns. So smaller regional. Right, we're not in rural yet. We're talking smaller regional towns. So we're talking towns that are less than 50,000 people in terms of those small towns that support large regional towns. So large regional towns are your Bundaberg, your Rockhamptons, your Townsvilles, your Cairns, those areas, right? Your Warrnables, your Albury-Wodongas, your Woggers, all of those things are your regional. So your smaller regional town. So smaller regional towns, you can get 8%, right? 8%. So what does that mean? That means it's $80,000, right? 45K, you clear 35K in positive cash flow, right? And that's why commercial property still offers really, really good returns, because the thing is, when you look at residential right now, $1 million, you are going to get minus $5,000 at best. Then if you go to commercial and you go to metro, you're going to be positive about, let's say, $13,000 to $15,000, depending if you pay management fees or not, on the $200,000 you've invested, right? And then if you say, well, that's not enough, I want to go to regional, so I can go to a regional town like a Townsville, like a Rocky, like a Mackay, I'm going to get 7%, right? I'm going to get 7%. So if you get 7% there, then all of a sudden you're clearing $25,000. So you're clearing $25,000 to cash flow. So what is that on 200K you've put in? That is actually about 12% cash on cash return. So 12% return on your cash, right? Not including growth already. But if you even say that's not enough, and we're going to go to a smaller regional town. So your Ayers and your Bowens and your Serenas, the towns that are probably outskirts of, your Warrnables and stuff. So you maybe your Bendigos and Ballarat, but fringe out of there, because even Bendigos and Ballarat's doing 7. So your further out towns, what you're going to find is that this means that you're going to get $35,000 in positive cash flow. And $35,000 on the 200K you've put in, it's somewhere around 18% cash on cash return, right? At 18% cash on cash return, what you're seeing here with the difference is that 35,000 can help you hold on to a lot of residential properties. Now, there's a particular strategy if you want to buy in smaller regional towns in Queensland or wherever in Australia. It doesn't really matter, but if you do, there is a particular strategy of when and what to look for, what not to get caught or get burnt, and how to do the DD, because it's a little bit different, because those little towns are a little bit tricky, a little bit clicky, and then how you scale that back later on, how you sell, dispose of it, exit, so you can come back to more security, right? But these smaller regional towns, at $80,000, $45,000 in terms of your interest rate, $35,000, $25,000, $25,000, $15,000. Really, your difference is if you right now buy commercial property, you can either be negative through residential, or you could be positive through commercial, anywhere from $15,000 to $35,000, depending on where you buy, still in this current market, after you pay out interest or your outgoings. And that means money in your pocket, but also what it means is that it helps you to support your residential portfolio. So if your residential is minus 5K or 10K, then really the next step for you is really getting one of these properties to support it. So it's not taking money out of your own pocket. And if you have 3, 4, or 5 of your residential and you want to hold on to it, this is key right now. Cash flow is king. Go for the cash flow. Let us help you with that strategy. Let's help out work out so you don't get burnt, especially in regional areas. That strategy, how to create that cash flow, how to support your portfolio overall, and when to actually exit those properties to come back to that security. So reach out to me, helen@unicorn.com.au. You can check out a copy of my book and join one of our events. So let us help you build a cash flow rich portfolio together and help you retire sooner through commercial real estate. Until next time, keep hunting, keep looking, and watch out for my next episode on growth when we do resi versus commercial. Bye for now.